Right. This project hasn't gone as planned. I still have lists, as I did for the last project. That would be my guidelines to go through it. But to start off with, I have to say, the project hasn't gone as planned. Didn't take a week. It took much closer to 3 weeks. Because I ask for foam, I then have a week where I don't do that. I also have help doing other stuff, making little bits that are more than what I was expecting. We shouldn't take that long, but it's just, it doesn't really feel like I'm getting anywhere in some days. The context of the project. Summary of the project and why it was, it was a fun project. I can't say that all the projects were as fun, but this project wasn't that bad. It was okay and interesting, but there are so many things that could have been better. The company that we're working for, Razzmatazz, they've come in several times to actually view the work and okay some of the sections. All the designs were okay, then we moved forward and made all that we could, and then they came in again and we okayed it again. One of the things that will probably be improved for the costume side is if there could be more communication sometimes about the sizes. So whilst they were held up with the sizes of material, they then didn't order for a couple of days, which meant that when it came to ordering for the chair, all the upholstery material was also held back in that system, because it's all collectively ordered by one person for the whole group and sorted out by her. I will say it's Amy who's in charge of ordering all the materials and budget, and she also has been the one collecting group documents. She hasn't formatted them as much as Catherine did for the last group, but she's been in charge of the paperwork side generally for the group. So a lot of the timetable sheets and group contracts are designed by her. I'm not sure that they're actually signed particularly. Possibly not by me, but they are definitely there, and I know that they are at least some extent completed. However, I do have to consider how it has been for the facility. I haven't actually been there. It's all been run from our workshop and then sent out to them. So it's only been a case of they've been visiting and okaying and agreeing with the work that we've been producing. So there hasn't really been any facilities that we've gone into. When it goes into the theatre, there are design things that we've been asked to do, such as the Audrey 2 sign, which is for the Little Shop of Horrors, has been built onto a bar so that it can be flown up. However, that is flexible because it can be then just attached around a steel bar by using the chains, so it can be attached to theirs, or it can be attached to a supplied bar which I've made for it. A lot of the other parts of the project that haven't gone well or have gone well is there's items that I thought I had, or the UCA had, which aren't there, and it's just trying to sometimes say to the person that's in charge of budget, can you find and source these parts? Yeah. Or you should do it, and then I don't really do it because I'm working on the stuff that's being made, which I could go away and do, and it would be quite easy, but it's something where I go and picked up materials, and when I've picked up the materials for the other parts, I've then bought the wheels then. But where those parts haven't been ready to collect, it's then taken more time to reach a point where I've actually been collecting the parts to continue to make, which isn't great, but it's sort of the way that the group has become structured and is working quite well. Though I will say that it would be better in some ways if the groups were more open and communicative with some of the ones that are currently away on work experience, as that's probably created most friction with the, as I've been calling it slightly ironically, the racist wig, which is more a case of a communication, inappropriation of a culture's hairstyle. It's still bad, but it isn't quite a racist wig, which I find quite... I don't find quite... It is serious, but there is a point where you have to step back and look at how people are taking a strong offence towards a wig. I mean, as it is now, I mean, them themselves went, it doesn't look that bad, but it's understanding what it is and where it's come from. I mean, I don't particularly know it, but it's taken from Motown, and they were talking about it's from the wrong era of Motown. Well, if that's correct, surely it's the wrong decade of Motown, because we also then have someone in a almost backwards baseball cap with sunglasses and stuff like that, which would much fall into the hip-hop and starting of rap, or borderline of late rap and hip-hop in that area, and boomboxes and that, which is almost, I think, a different century to any of the hairstyles. We're way past it. If anything, it's a retro hairstyle if you're taking it by that. And they're going, no, it's like early Motown. No, if anything, it's late Motown. It's more like Jackson 5, and Jackson 5 did have quite big hair in that style. And there were photos of it taken earlier when it was still like dreaded locks rather than being brushed out to be more voluminous, and how that was. Also, consideration of how they finished it. They finished it with beads, which I said take out, because that would have really upset the people that were offended by it. It sort of probably would have, possibly might have, but it's a bigger chance that it would have, because it did look quite bad for that aspect. But that's a discussion about the people that were in that group, the actual item itself and the workspace. There were some people in the costume and a lot of people in one big base room. So, next question on the list: key persons that you've worked with. E.g. for the Razzmatazz project, that is Hayley. She's the leader, she's okayed all the designs, she has actually signed off on all the finished products, and she's been part of the discussion from the Razzmatazz side as to how stuff is when it's been approved, and any problems that we've had, we've gone forward to her, as well as asking for measurements, obtaining information. The main point of contact has been her throughout the process. There hasn't really been contact with anyone else, however there has been, for the fashion side of this project, support by an in-house tutor, and there has been support for the props by Gary, who is one of our tutors, and some of the technicians such as Ben, who has been there supporting in the actual work that we've been producing. So some of the bits of material have been cut by him, as well as I now have use of some of the panel saws, as they got fed up on me keep asking in the last project, so I can now actually cut up most of the materials myself. So the way that worked in affecting me is I've gone to them and been at meetings where they've been, and I've helped be part of the communication and discussion in that scenario. But I'm not really sure there's much else to say on who it is, because she runs Razzmatazz, which is a child's theatre company. I haven't particularly asked her any questions or done much work with her, as I only thought this would be a week project, but it has developed into a 3-week project where I've been in on all the meetings with her, and I've been around a lot more because of time taken to get items in hasn't been the quickest, which is understandable. It was very much similar with Maidstone, which is why the compression at the end got to only a week of build time. I don't know too much about her practice, apart from she is a practicing theatre teacher for the young. She has probably had experience in it and in teaching, as well as being all the checks and systems like that, which is something that several of the other students are understanding more as they are going with the actual theatre company to test fit costumes for the students. For me personally, it's sort of only really a meeting system of meeting her and agreeing on what I need to do, or okaying props. It's been more of a discussion with the costume side with her, as that's been more the larger part of it, and I've only been part of that discussion. What is the structure of the organisation? The structure is one lead, which is Hayley. Underneath her there are then other teachers and support systems for the actual Razzmatazz. When it comes over to our side, there are tutors, which we get information from, rather than giving them information to normally. We then are inside the group organised so that there is no real leaders, as each person has their own specific abilities that are stronger. Inside the costume, there are people that will take banners and do larger stuff. There are people that will spend more time on tailoring and fitting costumes. And there are people that do costume props better than others. And it splits up more along the lines of what people are good at or what they're working on. As well as that, with the same as Maidstone, if people want practical experience. So I know that one of the students who also did Maidstone didn't do that much practical. When it came to a completely new machine for these students that I've used previously, which is a milling machine, it was slotting grooves into a piece of work, which I'll comment on when it actually comes up in my other work. That was something that I took another student and went, hey, do you want to learn? Same sort of system as Maidstone. If people want to move between projects, it was open that they could, but there was work that there was specifically for them. So for me, it was the chair and a lot of the adaptions and a lot of the practical stuff. There was then equal balanced groups in authority that went between painting or went between costume. There was still one person that was generally in charge that I went to, which was Amy, though she was not highly ranked as being in charge. It was just more things were best gone through her, as she was the one person that did a lot of the paperwork and logistic stuff. So if you wanted something, or if I was normally giving information, she'd be the person normally to document it down and run through it that way. I don't believe there was any highly structured meetings, but the meetings that were the ones with Hayley that were basically just okaying what was there or discussing what was going to be done, as well as a lot before the actual start of the practical stuff, which was during Maidstone, to actually come in and discuss technical stuff, which is more in the design discussions of what the project was. So there were meetings, but they were prior to me dedicating to that project, and it was still, I was between projects, so I'd go into the meetings with that one and then go back to Maidstone. But it's where the projects were overlapping, it was interesting. My role inside that structure was a maker. I was in charge of making the large practical stuff and any more unusual stuff that wasn't sort of craft based of paper and glue and felt. If it was plastics, woods, metals, even the IKEA a lot of the time came to me, because assembling IKEA is quite easy when you can just go and get big Allen keys and what roles were the other students in, etc. And long list like that. Quite a range. Emma, Hayley were two students that were in on smaller projects, as they were in less. So they had stuff like the medallion and one of the costumes, which was completely adequate for them, and it's the sort of stuff that they were probably best suited to do, and they will probably go forwards to do into next year. Amy, Megan and Kerry, with a K, were three students that did a lot of the costume. Amy and Kerry were more specifically good in costume. Megan also did some of the props, such as the gingerbread men, which also was done with Kerry. There was not really much in the way of specific skills, so they could go between the costume or different costumes, and they did do stuff with props and flowers and everything. but generally they would work more around the costume area, and they were more based in the base room, and would use a lot of the machines as well as a lot of the tailoring. Currently those 3 students are actually going for fittings at the actual Razzmatazz studios this weekend. There was then another student that's done a lot of the painting called Lisa, which is one which helped me with a lot of the basic construction for the chair. As you actually see in the making time-lapse videos, she was one of the people that was there sort of nailing whilst I was going around cutting stuff or sanding or getting the parts for nailing together, as well as helping set up and doing that. So she's one which helped me a lot on the practical side, as well as she then painted a lot of the items when they came back through and helped with yeah, she was one of the students that helped a lot with painting. Other than that, there was Hayley, who came in and also did painting and smaller props, as well as there were 1 or 2 other people that may have came in and helped, but I can't particularly remember them as they were not particularly ones on the main group. There is a group contract which should have all the names on, but similar to Maidstone, some of them come in very unfrequently, some of them come in more so. The ones that I've listed, yeah, Holly was one of the ones I listed, hopefully. They came in a lot and helped. No other questions on the list. Generalisation of how the project went. It's gone quite well, but one thing that would be better to improve is the timing. It's yet again a case of ordering items and sourcing measurements. Although it would be really bad professionally, it's to go, can we have the measurements for this and have the measurements that week, which doesn't always work, and it then means that there's more time that you then need to spend getting that before you can move forwards. So a lot of materials, a lot of things that held me up were cases of there weren't materials there that week, and I didn't have the enthusiasm to push for getting it back, as it was something that would get there when it got there, which is something I've started to learn about these projects of, if a client doesn't provide measurements, you need to wait until they do, because keep on pressuring them, it doesn't speed it up, it can sometimes worsen it. But it's a good thing to learn now rather than learning it. It's not proactive to do that and have that attitude, but it's one that's beneficial to be, okay, I can sit back. If the project doesn't get done, it's not my fault, it's the case of I haven't got given the information. I'm not sure there's much else with this project other than I think everything that's actually been made and produced has gone well. Though I have to mention one thing. I didn't mention about the racist wig, which is still what I'm calling it. The problem with that was a lot of the making students didn't research or consider when they were actually making it, which then annoyed and upset some of the coloured students that we actually have, which I believe is the correct term for them. Yeah, coloured students got annoyed that the hair was being appropriated, especially seeing as one of the students is particularly has written topics on it and has actually written essays and done presentations on that subject. Although it is to say that the wig itself, especially in the state that I saw it in the morning and the state that it was uploaded to being online with a photograph, could have been considered mildly offensive, as one of them was still partially dreadlocked and was so many multiple styles of hair compressed together that it was mildly insensitive, although the offence that was taken from it was quite exaggerated because it was done online, which is a whole nother topic. The project itself was done in such a way where a lot of the communication between 4 different groups was done on Facebook, which is then hard to communicate and split between the tone of an expression. So a lot of the comments seemed more harsh than it actually was. Recently we've had a discussion to sort out this disagreement and this tension that has been created by this item. I mean, it's something that has been very sensitive to a lot of people. The only way really round it is to either create something that avoids these topics and does not approach them as they are deemed too sensitive because people will be offended by them, or that you have to heavily research and be able to defend yourself for making it. Which, seeing as the project was, we were trying to get measurements, we were trying to get materials, and we were doing other stuff, it seems a lot more difficult to obtain a lot of the research that they would have wanted to be there to back up why we've done it that way. Though I would say to have a general understanding of stuff is very beneficial, as there was a stage which is not photographed where it had beads in it, and it was potentially even more offensive than the first photographs, but it was very fixable to just take it out and bring it back to being something balanced. But I think with all the tension, toxicity, issues that have been raised with it, it is something that, for the handover to the Razzmatazz studios, is not going in, as there's been another headdress that has been created from scratch to replace the item in the performance, as it's been too fiercely debated about its appropriate nature and the appropriation of the culture. It's something to bear in mind as I go forward with other projects, of if I do something that is based around another race, religion, ideology, to understand at least a general basis of it before creating it. Especially when you consider where and how stuff is considered in modern times. I think this is something that needs to be considered is also social media, which with my current last project is something that I'm beginning to look at how it can be used as advertisement and how businesses can be running aside of it. But for this project, I think this is a good place to end. It's been quite good. For now, that's it on this project, and hopefully there is no more discussions about negative aspects of the group, and only how we can positively move forward in our working environment of UCA to avoid and to teach and learn about issues similar to racial appropriation and all the other aspects that have been learnt in this project. For now, that's it, and I will now be moving on to another 2 mini projects that are about 2-3 days each, and then a conclusion for the final unit. Hopefully that will be everything for now, but everything should be good. Goodbye.